Hello, good evening. Welcome to Money Mastery Kingdom Dominion Money and Marriage series. So, if you're in the room, please share it out. If you're watching the replay, please type in the comments replay. I'm just going to give a couple seconds for people to get in the room so we can have this discussion. All right. So, Money Mastery Kingdom Dominion, what is it, right? Money Mastery Kingdom Dominion is a series where we are going to get comfortable with talking about money and our relationships with ourselves and just how we manage money. But this particular portion of the series is called Money and Marriage. And if you are uh, sharing finances with your partner, if you are thinking about marriage, you are married, this is the session you want to be in. We're going to have very candid conversations concerning money and marriage so that we can get more comfortable. There's just some things that maybe has never been talked about, and it's just helpful if you could talk with other married couples that are experiencing some of the same or have experienced some of the same things you may be experiencing. So we just want to have an opportunity so that we get comfortable talking about money. My name is Raquel Carr. I am your money magnet, financial strategist, and I am here with my husband, Johnny Carr, and I'll let him introduce himself.
What's up, family? I am Johnny Carr. I'm married to the money magnet and financial strategist. And I'm really excited to be here today. Really want to have a great conversation with you guys.
All right. Now, I just want to let you all know that we are in separate spaces because it's in the same house, but just to manage our space time here. But he does not know the questions that I ask. So it's always a surprise. And if he was sitting next to me, he would get some insight. So I want you to tell you that so that you know these questions, one, and his answers are authentic. They are coming from his heart and they are not rehearsed because he has no idea what we're going to talk about. So you can't do this if you haven't had good experience with managing money together to know how each other thinks and so that you can trust each other in this process. So we are going to kick it off. I want to give you just an overview of the various ways that you can participate in the process of Money Mastery Kingdom Dominion. For the month of June, I'm going live each and every day at various times. So you should just click in my bio so that you can sign up and you can get notifications wherever you see me. Click the notifications button so that you can receive the notifications of when I go live. And what are we talking about during the week? So, Money Mastery Kingdom Dominion. On Sundays, we talk about money and marriage. On Mondays, we talk about money and that primary breadwinner. If there's only one breadwinner in the family, whether it's one person, and you're married, or if you're just single and you have kids or family. But if you're primarily providing for the entire household, we're talking about that on Monday nights. On Tuesday, it is Spin the Money Wheel. And what's exciting about that, that is a working session. So we go over the different areas of the financial wheel. We pick one or two areas to focus on, set some intention around it. It gives you the opportunity to pull away and to really dig deep in the things that you may have been putting off. So that time where you are already going to be on social media, you can spend that time investing in yourself and in your family. So definitely tune in for that on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, it is Budget Clinic. What is Budget Clinic? Budget Clinic is when you know how you go to the clinic, you got a little cough, little sore throat. So if you're starting out on your budget or you're deep in your budget and you're having some issues, some hiccups, you can't seem to figure out how to get ahead, and you want a session where you can ask some questions, you can ask them anonymously. Again, if you click the link in my bio, there is a link for Budget Clinic where you can submit your questions in advance, or you can just ask the question while we're on live. So and I'll do my best to answer them or direct you in a place where you can get more assistance. On Thursdays, it's money and those extended relationships, family, friends, commitments outside of your home. How do you manage those? How do you keep those going? So that is Thursday. And on Friday is money and mindset. If you can't, you just need to identify what your relationship is with money, how you approach money, how to break some of those money habits, then that is a session you want to attend. That's on Fridays. Saturdays is Bible study. And right now I'm doing a series on the 10 Commandments of financial healing. Excellent, excellent series. I strongly suggest that you tune in for that, because that's really a great session for not only for you to get some word around your finances, but also get some application, some things that you can do to participate in your financial healing. And then we start the week all over again. So it's exciting times. And definitely tune in for all of that. There are also plenty of resources in my bio if you want to find out more ways that you can get support. There is the ultimate budget planner. If you need a place where you can really write everything down and you can get your budget kind of going, that is an excellent resource. It's only $27 right now. There are some things that'll be changing in the near future, a lot more resources. If you want individual coaching, that's also available. So definitely check out the link in the bio. So now we're just going to get into it. We're going to get into the many, many questions and hear the responses that my husband has around money and how we operate. I just want to let you know, we are two completely different people when it comes to managing money, our viewpoints on money. And so when you bring two people together, you have to work through some things. And I want to tell you that we both were established in our separate worlds, in our separate financial worlds before we came together. So we didn't come together with nothing and built together. We came together as two independent people that already had established careers, and then we were married. And we're going to talk about some of those ups and downs and some of the things that, some advice and some things that you can look forward to, or some things you might be in that you want to say, how do I get out of this? Okay, so let's get into it. So question one, I want to kind of ask my husband, money philosophy is really based on a person's truth, their individual viewpoint and vantage point to how they view the relationship with anything. Yeah, your philosophy is, your philosophy, how you deal with, your parents, your philosophy, how you deal with your career. There's also a philosophy of how you view money based on your personal experiences, what you believe to be true. And so I want to ask you, how important do you think it is for couples to know what their partner's money philosophy is?
I'm writing that down. Um, well, let me qualify since you qualified. Let me qualify as well, honey. I think we did have different philosophies. I think even if we do now, um, I understand that my wife is better, more effective. Let me say it that way. My wife is more effective, and I can see the fruits of that at managing money than I am. So while I may think differently, I yield to her when it comes to money. I yield to her when it comes to how we manage our money, what decisions we make, and she includes me in those decisions. But I definitely yield to her. So I say that because I don't want you to hear that we think differently. We're two different, completely different things. Well, they must beef about money. We do not beef about money. It's like if my wife says that's what's up. Now I may push back a little bit if it's something I really want, but she knows what this is the other thing, and it's going to tie right into your question. She knows what I like and what I want, and she tries very hard to make sure before she even comes to me that she does that. So how important do I think it is to know your partner's philosophy? I think it's hugely important. I think one of the mistakes that people make is assuming that either their partner is going to do what they want them to do, or they're just going to ignore their partner's philosophy on money. That conversation has to be had. It has to be had because you can avoid a lot of trouble. You can avoid a lot of heartache. You can avoid a lot of financial woes, if you will, if you have that conversation up front and if you're willing to compromise is the wrong word, but if you're willing to give and take to make sure that your financial goals are met. So I think it's hugely important.
Uh, my husband is graciously, adding these disclaimers, but let me add a disclaimer. What we are today is not what we were in the beginning. So
You
people
would.
that
That's
are
true.
joining in,
That's
they
true.
might be thinking
That's true.
about marriage
Yeah.
or in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
So I want you to kind of go back to maybe the beginning and some of, because I don't know that we had necessarily that conversation. And so we're trying to, make mainly
Yeah.
help people so that they don't make maybe some of the same mistakes we made. Because there's a lot of things you can assume when you're in love.
Yes. So that's not what my lovely wife said. I thought we were speaking from now. I'm talking about now. You going back. This seemed familiar when she going back. Remember? But if you're talking about when you want me to answer these questions from when we first got together, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, just kind of the journey, in terms of
Oh,
why it's
yeah,
important to understand your spouse's philosophy on money.
yeah. Well, I mean, of course, in the beginning. I mean, I think I said that in the disclaimer in the beginning. No, I think we did. First of all, I had no idea that my wife was, and she kind of laid back, right, when we first got together, I did the bills, it was like I did the money, right? Is that right, honey? Because you always say like I would forget stuff. Like, is that right? Yeah.
Uh, I think I did them.
Okay. Okay.
And then you did them.
And
And then I did them. And then you did them.
okay. So I think she sits back. Y'all see, you see what she's doing, right? So she sits back and she kind of, I'm gonna let him go ahead and think he knew what he's doing, right? And I thought that was nice. I mean, look, the bills was getting paid. The bills was getting paid, and stuff was getting paid down. Um, but it wasn't. I did not have at that time, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Um, that it's not just about paying the bills. It's about future. It's about investing. It's about a whole lot of stuff that I would I felt like if you paid the bills, I was doing I'm a man. Like I pay my bill. I take care of my family, right? And I did not know how deep it was and how deep my wife was and how man. When I tell y'all she is passionate about, she's the only person that can make a budget sound like a night at the theater. Like she's like she just loves it. And so it wasn't that with me. It was like pay the bill. So I do think it's important to know um, the other person's philosophy. I think it's very important to know that, and I didn't. I really did. So is that was that a better answer, honey?
Yeah, no, no. Your first answer was great.
Oh, thank you, love.
So I think, if I go back to the beginning, um, I had a lot of assumptions. He was Johnny Carr. And I was thinking, I mean, he's managed, $1 million budgets and things like that. So I think that in my mind and in my heart, I felt that I could do it better, but he felt that he could do it better. So I did have to sit back and wait because you're in a marriage and you're trying to figure out your position as a wife. I'm trying to assess what is my role, what's my responsibility, what is okay to do, what's not okay to do. I'm going pulling on what I saw my parents maybe do, and I'm making my own decisions in that process. And they may or may not be wrong, right or wrong. And the strange thing about being married is that there's really no one you can talk to. I mean, where you can feel that it's free from judgment. Yeah, you can go to therapy, maybe something like that. But all in all, if you don't have that kind of structure within your maybe family dynamic where money is something that's talked about all the time, or you're seeing really good money relationships with your family and friends, there's no one to talk to about it. And you're just stuck with not only, becoming a wife for the first time, first and only. Uh, but also, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say yes to? What am I say no to? What if I don't feel like this is good? But he's the head of the household. It's like all these things that you're told and that you've learned over your life, and then you get in a situation where you have to put this in practice, and you're thinking about, prior to getting married, you're thinking about getting married. But I don't know that I ever thought about, okay, how are we going to manage money when we're married? I never thought about that. I never had that kind of conversation in my head. It was like, oh, you meet the person and you plan a wedding, and you'll have kids and you have careers, but managing money,
Hmm.
that was just not something that was even in my mind. And then I'm in this situation, and then he has his ideas, and then I want to be, because the Bible says that you're supposed to respect your husband, and I want to be respectful, but then I have different views about this. And I was very unclear in the beginning of how do I navigate these conversations when he's in charge.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? I don't mean to cut you off, love, but you know what's funny about that is that um, I have to. My wife is a thinker, right? You have to understand that my wife processes and she thinks very deeply about everything. So my wife is a shopper and I'm a buyer, right? Like I go in and I'm gonna get it. My wife, before she gets in the store, she thinks about what she's going to buy. She thinks about where it's going to be. She thinks about how long it's going to take her to put it in the cart, how long it's going to take her. Like she, that's literally how she processes, right? So for me, at the end of the day, and I think for both of us, but for me at the end of the day, it's about um, I just want my family to be taken care of, right? And in the beginning, there was absolutely some pride. As again, like I said, I'm a man. I need to take, But at the end of the day, I got to the point where I realized that well, I don't. I mean, we need to make sure we're taken care of. And as my wife began to explain things to me, that's why conversations about money are so important. Like in my family, when you sit around the table talking about, we talked about money, we talked about how much we were going to get, or we weren't talking about investing. Those weren't dinner conversations when I was growing up, y'all. But with my wife, she was having some really serious conversations. And I think as she began to have those conversations, I began to understand, you know what? This ain't about pride. In the beginning, it was pride. I just want to make sure that I'm handling my business. My wife is better at it than I am. I realized that, and so it got to the point where she took it over, and ever since she's taken it over, I mean, we've been it's just been money, pun intended. So I think it's important to have conversations about money, but I think for me, at the end of the day, I just wanted us to be, and again, my wife's idea of wealth her, and I think as couples, you have to have that well, what do you mean when you say wealthy? Like, what, like, like, here's what I think wealth is. And when I heard her idea of wealth, I'm like, oh, I can deal with that, but that ain't what I was thinking. So, you kind of have to get on the same page and be willing to support and engage one another. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so key that you even said that, because when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, I remember that time in church, and my husband gets up and gives this beautiful testimony of he had, I think, some notebook that he had wrote out his goals in, and he said, I want to be able to make this amount of money, and I want to have this career, and I don't know if he, what else was on this list. And I had never heard this before, so I didn't even know this existed, right? And then he says, so when I heard what his overall financial goal, I remember sitting in church in horror. He doesn't even know this. I was like, oh my goodness, we are not aligned. I'm praying for one thing, and the head of the house has a completely different view of what our financial future looks like. And at that moment, I was like, it is going to be impossible for us to reach the wealth goal that I have in mind, because the head of this house is thinking that he wants a job that's going to get him this and pay him that, and get this, his whole list. This is what he wanted his whole life. And I was sitting there in horror. And not only I'm horrified, I don't even know how to address it. I'm like, I don't even know how to say to him that this is absolutely not what I was thinking about. And how do we're so far apart. How do we come together? Because
Mm.
again, as a wife and as a somewhat new wife, I mean, we've been a couple years into the relationship, into the marriage, but I still didn't know how to properly address it and still be respectful, still honor him, still make sure that I was not making him feel like he wasn't being honored or he wasn't being respected. I was really wrestling with that, and I had to just, I had to pray about it. And over time, we started to like this. So it wasn't like overnight I took over his vision, or it was just a gradual me understanding we are at different spaces. This is what he's always want his entire life. I can't just go in and say, that's not what we're doing. I have to have some patience. I have to assess this situation, and I have to see how I can gradually bring him along with the help of the Holy Spirit, of course. I don't know if you ever knew that.
No, no. Again, you know what? Again, what I hear, which I think is key, is I hear you. You know, you're really trying to be respectful of me, and not not cut my legs out from under me. Not bring me down off my high. And I'm like, again, for me, it's like I just wanted my family to be taken care of. And if I was riding high, with my cape flying in the wind and on my horse, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like, baby, that's not going to get us where we need to be. I need you to think higher. Coming from my wife, coming from my bride, my girlfriend, I'm feeling that. Coming from somebody else, I don't know about all that, but coming from my wife. And so I think that's where the trust comes in, especially after you see, you know, what she can do. And hopefully she'll talk to you about how she renamed our bank accounts. I think that was the first time that I thought, okay, she for real about this money thing. Like she literally renamed our bank accounts to Abundant Blessing Checking and Overflow Savings. And I was like, that's kind of sexy, first of all. That's sexy. But then I thought, that is really deep. Like she's making the bank accounts reflect where we want to be. And that's when I started to understand, okay, I need to shift my paradigm. But see, you only do that when you really respect and love and yield to your partner and the greatness in your partner. And I was yielding to the God in her, because the first thing she said to me when we got married was, she said, "You tired?" And I said, "No." She said, "You're not bringing no curses on our house. We're going to." I had never tithed before I met my wife. Y'all hear me? I had never tithed before I met my wife, and could not understand why I was struggling this summer. And I was. Well, my wife said, "I thought you was a baller when I met you," but I was, but I wasn't. I was jacking myself up. And if you understand the principle of tithing, you understand why. She taught me that. I've been going to church most of my life, and she taught me that. That's why it's important to have those conversations. And as a wife, I would say to you, my wife said something important. Don't be afraid to have that conversation with your husband. As a husband, don't be afraid to have that conversation with your wife. Now, we cleaned it up for y'all. I wasn't the easiest person to talk to about certain things too. She ain't gonna tell you all that because but we got there. Like she said, it did kind of get like this. Okay, does that make sense, honey?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because that's so true in terms of paying tithes, being intentional about your finances, and sometimes you can be intentional and not be offensive. You can still work in silo, and sometimes that feels like financial infidelity because I feel like in the beginning I feel like I had some financial infidelity. I feel like I was moving in silence, like, okay, he has this one vision, I have a different vision. I think my vision is better, so I'm going to start kind of stashing money away here. He doesn't really need to know about that because his philosophy on money is different from mine. He believes in paying the bills and spending the rest. That's how it was in the beginning of our marriage. So I believe in saving, and I believe saving at a high level. So I believe in the future. What's next? I've just been in too many situations where funeral happens, we're doing GoFundMe's. Uh, Someone dies, and people just aren't prepared for the death, and it's just so many painful financial situation. So, and when you've struggled a lot in your life, you don't want to be in that place where you have nothing. So, to me, paying all the bills and spending the rest meant. I remember watching when I first moved down here. I remember watching the news and seeing a couple that lost their job at a hospital and they committed murder suicide. And I just
Remember
thought
that?
like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, people are one job away from committing suicide because they
Yeah.
don't know how they're going to pay the next bill. And money is a
Yeah.
temporary problem. So you never want to answer something with a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You want to deal with a temporary problem in a
Preach.
temporary way. Okay. So don't go out
You
if
write that down for my next name. Good. Good.
you are out here struggling with money and you can't figure out how you're going to make it, death should not be the answer, because money can change overnight. You honestly, it just really requires a different mindset, a different thought on how you're going to address it. And I just want to encourage anybody that might be going through a financial struggle, financial pain. It is a temporary problem. It is not permanent. I promise you. So infidelity, financial infidelity. Have you ever had any financial infidelity? And if you haven't, why do you think people hide finances from their spouse, from their partner? Why do you think they hide their spending or hide some of the things that they do? What do you think is some of the causes of that? And if you've done it?
Yeah, I've never had financial infidelity. I don't. I think. Did you come up with that term? Because that's I've never heard that before.
I did
Did you
not.
coin that one?
I did not coin
Okay.
that.
I I've never, and I love seeing. Do y'all see how my wife smiles when she talks about money? Like I sometimes we be at the table and I'd be like, "Girl, say something about money," because I just want to see a smile, right? Because um, I think I have never done that because my wife gets angry when I say this. When I used to say this, but I don't trip off money like that. Like I don't like as long as my wife and my family is happy. In the beginning, obviously it wasn't. It was just well, it wasn't just us. It was my wife and my first daughter, and then eventually two more. But um, my goal was always to make sure my family was taken care of, and so I I have never been one to take care of myself first. My mother taught me that growing up. That's just how I was raised. What you have belongs to the family. I mean, you take care of the family first. And so I've always been a giver in that respect. Never been a hoarder. Which is why my wife had to dress me when we first got together because I ain't spent a lot of money on myself. And she was like, whoa, wait a minute now. We got now, wait a minute now. Like I put something on and she'd be like, "You gonna wear that?" Like I got it on. She be gonna wear it. I got it on. Um, and I began to see, and she's just so good with it. Now, one thing my mother is good at, she can take $10 and she can stretch. I don't know how she do it, but she can stretch it to do a lot. And so I've always felt like God would always give me more. So why I didn't need to hide it or I didn't need to lie about it. I didn't. So now, me personally, I've never done that, and I never really saw the need for that. So it's interesting that she was putting money where I didn't know about it though, but that was kind of crazy. But
He knew I
I
had.
wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it infidelity, but I mean, because you
Yeah.
weren't taking it for
I
yourself.
mean, yeah, because he was over at that time. He was over the money, so it was the allowance that I was given, and I was just putting it aside because I knew a rainy day may come. But I think even when he still says I don't trip about money, it still bothers me in my chest because and that's what he would say. He was like, money is gonna, I feel like God is just gonna take care of me. And just to hear that, every everything in my body still is inflamed. First of all, God takes care of us by giving us the wisdom to take care of what he's given us. So this idea that it's just going to drop from the sky and I just got to keep moving, keep walking. And I guess that's why God, you're right, God is going to take care of you because he gave you a wife that is conscious about money.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. I think it would be a mistake for. I think it would be a mistake in this marriage for both of us to be the same way about money. I think God has he has filled all the gaps, right? Like the things that I'm not strong at, my wife is brilliant at, right? And the things that my wife doesn't necessarily care about doing, I love to do, right? And I think that's what it means when it says iron sharpens iron, right? But in the process, there's friction in the process sometimes, right? You got to learn, but at the end of the process, you're sharp. And I think that's what happened with us, right? So I think my wife was brilliant at that. And I'm telling you, I'm I am so cool with that. And I only said that for purposes of demonstrations. And I don't say I don't trip off money anymore. One, because I know what it does to my wife. Whether I agree with it or not, I know what it does to her. So I don't say that. Because I do trip off money. Because I do want my wife to have the thing. I mean, I want her to have whatever she wants. I want my family to have whatever they need to. So yeah. So I only said that for purposes of demonstration. So
I like what you said about that friction part because I think people think when they're opposite that that person is wrong or and it just needs and it's not going to get better. But if you accept that the differences is what's going to help your marriage. You know what I mean? The difference
Yeah.
is him being a spender helped me to be more freer with spending things that I wouldn't normally spend on. And me being a saver helped him to think about, okay, let me put this money aside. So it is a benefit. If you come together in finances and y'all are not the same, that is a benefit to both of you. You have, but absent of conversation, then you don't end up getting the benefit of your differences. You just end up being in friction and you stay in friction too long. I saw something where this married couple, they didn't have their finances together and one managed one way, other, but they managed their finances separate. I think they may have had a joint account, but the husband did he brought video games, like $600 worth of games every month. Now, me being a saver, I was sitting here horrified. But again, it's not even financial infidelity because they don't even share it. But that one person didn't know about the other. But they, if you don't have goals, if you're not aligned, you don't know where you guys are going, then yeah, you can think that you can spend $600. He's spending $600 a month on video games. She's trying to save towards them buying a house, and that's a misalignment. The biggest wealth trick, honestly, is marriage. When you come together and you get aligned with your money and your money goals, I mean, that is already a step towards investing in your financial future. If you are together and your finances are separate, it is counterproductive. And I know a lot of
Mhm.
people have this, and I know for whatever reasons that you have it, it's necessary. Like some people are so bad with money that in order to make sure that your finances are straight and your household remains fluid, somebody you can't put your finances together. It would cause probably a divorce. So I get that and I understand it, but I can tell you the benefits of when you bring those finances together and you have shared goals and shared vision. You don't have to think alike. It gets there, with that constant communication, constant talking, and you're setting the goals together. Then you start to align together, and once that alignment happens, oh, and I can tell you it wasn't aligned in the beginning. So hang in there, don't get discouraged. So I want to ask you, honey, how do you feel when you have to say no to a financial decision? Like, hey, you want X, but the answer is no because it just can't. That idea, just as a society, I think is hard for us to tell ourselves no, let alone tell our loved ones, meaning me, the kids, no when it comes to something financially that's going to put us in a bad spot.
Yeah. Well, when you're married to somebody who always tries to make sure you have everything that you need, the Bible says two is better than one, right? And I think uh, my wife compliments me in such an amazing way, and I don't say that because we're on a live. I say that because um, it makes it easier to accept certain things, right? Sometimes it's very necessary to say no. I don't. I'm now. So my wife is right. I'm a spender, but I'm not like a reckless spender. Like I'm a spender. And I was horrified to do was spending $600 a month on game. Like what? Like I mean, everybody has their thing. I don't spend like that. Like my wife can't tell. She can't tell you one thing I didn't walk in this house with. And she been like, "What did you like?" I think one time I bought a trombone or a saxophone or something, and that was like the worst thing I ever did. I think. Well, no, I can't take it as a car. I bought her a car. She hates that. She'll. I hope she don't tell that story. But I feel like, especially when it comes to, again, I'm a person that, like, I want my family to be taken care of first. I have no problem saying no to family. I have no problem saying no to myself. Very rarely say no to my wife. Now she might think differently, but if my wife wants something, I'm gonna work real hard to try to make sure she gets it. But when it comes now, she always will say no to stuff. Like she have us in here eating. You know, listen, my wife can go hard, right? Like hard. Like, and I'm like, all right, we can go hard, but I'm gonna need some ESPN. I'm gonna need right, like, but she, So I think I've learned certainly how to say no more, like without question, or to go without. But we've been blessed enough where I haven't really had to do that. But we have had instances where, because I understand my wife said, if you say no now, it'll get us to yes later. And
Hey,
I've seen that happen.
reach.
I've seen that happen. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of times I've seen that happen. Because I understand that it's a temporary no. It's a no for now. But because if you we can say, and matter of fact, I can say yes now, but it's not going to be as good as you really wanted to be. And I think our house, we were just talking about that. The house that we have now is because we said no to some things early. But while we were saying no, she was planning and she was doing. So I think it's important to say no sometimes because it gets you to your yes.
That, honey, you better give me
Hmm.
my flowers while I'm
I
alive.
get husband points.
Because that
Do I get
is
husband points for that one?
that is amazing. I'm glad you took that. Yeah, he said, I do say no. First of all, he told me I'm not allowed to say no. Okay. I am the CFO, he is the CEO, and my job is to make sure I find a
Sure.
way and not a way to make whatever dreams he have come true. So that's what I try to do. I'm like, okay, my job is to find the money and not necessarily say no. So I try not to say no to him. Sitting out to the kids, I'll say no all day long.
All day long.
All day
Yeah.
long. But to him, if he say he wants something, my mind is turning to figure out how can I get it? How can I plan for it? What
For
do I
sure.
need to do? I always take it. I always say this, any problem that I have, I give it to JC and JC, Johnny Carr, Jesus Christ and Johnny Carr. So if he has something that he wants, I just say, okay, Jesus, your son wants X, Y, and Z. And um, I need to find a way to make it happen. And I put it before the Lord. And then I start researching and find a way to get it. And honestly, God will just put something in my face to say, okay, this is how you can get that. And this is how you can do that. And that is my guiding light. So,
And I
and I
appreciate that.
try not to ask for anything because he don't trip about money. So if I ask for it and I know that it's not possible or it's going to require something amazing, I'm not going to ask for it because I already know he's going to try to make it happen and it's probably not a good idea.
Well, here's the funny thing about that is that she doesn't ask for a lot of things, but she talks about things, right? Like what I learned about my wife, like if I got to be careful, I have to be careful about what I say, because if I say, "Man, that spacesuit was nice. I sure wish I had a spacesuit." When I wake up tomorrow, and come downstairs, it's gonna be an Amazon box downstairs, and there's gonna be a spacesuit in it. I'm not lying. That's how she works. So I have to be very mindful of what I say around her. Now she says it because she doesn't think I'm gonna do it because I'm not as good. I don't. I'm not as gifted as she is in thinking and planning and trying to make things happen like that. But I want to, right? I want to. So um, she doesn't say certain things because I think it's hard sometimes as a man when you don't have your. Now listen to me carefully. I don't want to get myself in trouble. Your own money, right? Because it's not really a gift if I'm buying it from. She can see that like I'm buying it from our stuff, right? And I'm like, I want to be able to. Now I want my own money because I want to be outdoor. I want to because I want to do something for her or for the family. And I've learned to get past that though. But you still, and I am learning to be a saver now. By the way, I have saved something every week for the last. I've never done that in my life for the last 4 weeks, y'all. I have, and I've never done it. It feels good too. But I would just like to be able to do things for my wife that she don't really know is coming because she can't be. You can't surprise my wife. Like you can't surprise her. She always knows stuff. So anyway,
Okay, so this this was not my next question, but because my husband said that, I'm going to
now
put
my husband.
in
I was a honey. I was a honey 2 questions ago. Now my husband.
because he does have his own money. He has his own credit cards.
I do. I
That,
do.
that
I
I
do.
don't know
I do.
any. I do not even look at it because I don't even want to know
I do. I do have.
what he's spending. So he has his own money. Absolutely. I don't know where he
I
got
do.
that from. And it was
I
as
do.
a result of him having that same conversation. I want to be able to do things that's not all that you don't know about, so I can be able to surprise you.
Yeah.
And that is what I do. I will still make sure the bills get paid, but I don't go looking at the spending and what's going on because that is his money. He is a grown man.
Grown man.
Grown man. So let's talk about financial independence in marriage versus interdependence.
Mm.
How you feel about that? So
Financial independence versus financial independence meaning each one of us have our own cheddar. Is that what you're saying? Versus
yeah,
we
I mean,
put it
like
together
I'm,
with
you know, I hear a lot of people where they say, "Hey, can I borrow X, Y, and Z?" Like they'll borrow money from their spouse, the spouse give it back. They have their own money. There's a maybe a joint account that pays
wow.
the bills, but I'm financially
Yeah.
independent. If I want to buy anything or anything that I'm doing, I have
Yeah.
truly my own money, not all the money's in a pot and then everybody. So the way we manage
Right.
money, all money goes in a pot and then it just
Right.
gets dispersed to everywhere, whether it's bills, whether it's your personal allowance, blah blah blah. It kind of goes
Right.
out that way. But there
Right.
are situations where there's maybe a joint account where the bills come out and then their money is their money, however that
Yeah.
works out. Whatever you agree to pay, like, hey, if he agrees to pay the mortgage and I agree to
Yeah.
pay the light bill or whatever the scenario is, whatever works for your particular family. So, how do you feel about
Yeah.
financial independence versus interdependence in marriage?
Yeah. I feel like other than the 401ks or the three whatever they call 403bs, whatever they call it now. Um, Other than that, being it has to be almost right. Although I can't spend mine without my wife giving me authority, right? Like I can't draw the money out of that, and I made my wife the what do you call it, the primary beneficiary, right?
Right.
Um, I think that depends on the individual couple, but that's not something that I would go for. I don't borrow money from my spouse. We do what we said, honey. I would like this, and then honey, I'm gonna find a way to make it happen. Because, my wife is a CFO. My job is to protect. My job is to make sure, she's well taken care of, and that my family is. And her job is to, if we need something for the house, to find a way to make it happen. And she does that. And I sit down and talk about the vision and the strategy and all that, and she does as well. We do that together, and we meet weekly. And we talk about um, the finances. I get to see the budget. I get to see what she's working on. So it ain't like it's these spaces, or I know every account we have and I can ask any question at any time, and that helps me. I think trust is, when I tell y'all, the trust is so important. Y'all, it's like, and she said this one thing to me, I'll never forget it. She said, "You have to, you should give me the benefit of the doubt." And that thing pricked me. Like, you know what? Yeah. Like if I'm gonna give it to anybody, I'm definitely gonna give it to my wife. So I don't worry about money. I don't. I can't stand. Well, not. No, I'm not gonna say that because I do. I respect budgets. I respect them because I know what they can do for you. But I ain't got no love affair with them. To be honest with you, but I respect them, and my wife is outstanding at that. So I think financial independence. You should be very careful with that. I think compounding things is much better, and then saying if you want something, let's work it out. But I don't necessarily believe in that financial independence piece. So, if we're married, how can we be independent and be married?
I think that financial interdependence can only really be achieved if you are in alignment. I can imagine if I don't trust you with my life, then I certainly can't trust you with my resources. So if you're in a marriage and you don't trust the person, you don't trust them with your life, you don't trust them with your children. But sometimes I've noticed people will trust you with your children, with their life, but they won't trust you with their money.
I'm trying to put their
So
money.
I think it just comes down to where you are in your relationship. And if you don't have that trust, you absolutely should not mix finances, in my opinion. Um, I think
Yeah.
you should mix when like I know my husband walks with the Lord. I know my husband that if he is submitted to God and God is, the core that keeps us together. And if he was out there running the streets, doing whatever, or he was aligned with something other than the most high God, no, I'm not mixing those finances. Um, I would be independent, financially independent. But because I know that he is responsible and he cares about, and I know where his values and his money philosophy, I'm aligned with that. I am submitted totally and completely to him, his leadership and authority. So yeah, I may might manage the finances, but I'm still submitted to him because I trust him. And if you don't have that trust and you don't have that confidence in your mate, I know women that just are frivolous spenders, and they're addicted to shopping and they love to shop. So if they have access to the account, and they'll tell you like, I'm not good at that, um, it might bring the family down. So sometimes in those instances, you need to be financially independent because one spouse has an addiction to spending, or they're shopaholic, or so until you deal with whatever the issue is around your mindset around money and how you spend money, you have to do what's going to keep the family safe. And sometimes being independent in a marriage is what is going to keep everybody safe. Like somebody might have a gambling addiction or anything that's going to take away from the household. If the goal isn't to make sure the household thrives and the household builds wealth, that's why it's important to have those conversations. Then, you know, I think it's definitely a need to have independence, financial independence in a marriage. And luckily, we don't have that problem, thankfully.
Think,
Because I was just watching Mary J. Blige. She got married. She thought he was the one, and he cheated on her, and she has to pay him alimony, 30,000 a month. So, you know, all right, we're coming to the close, and I have a one question: financial decisions when it comes to children.
mm,
When you want to do something for the babies, but let's say they don't deserve it. Like the decisions around kids also comes with the philosophy on how you're raising them and what you want their expectations to be. My husband loves to give and to make everything comfortable for everyone that's under him. And sometimes that comfort makes them maybe irresponsible. So, how do you have financial decisions with children as they're growing when they have a desire to just have a handout, but they might need to earn some? How do you build some financial? Because the same way you said you grew up and you didn't have those conversations about money. How are you changing that for our children? So that they can say that they do have an understanding that they can be fiscally responsible as adults because they've been trained as such growing up.
yeah. I don't ever want to give the impression that we have it all figured out when it comes to money and that we're not still growing and we're not still evolving. And I mean, certainly for me, that this right here is probably one of the ones that I need to keep working on because my wife's right, and what she's really saying is, um, I give my kids what they want. My wife gives them what they need, right? And in doing that, you know, um, you spoil them. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I just that's something I just need to get better at because I think initially we weren't going to get our kids phones, and we had talked about that. I had always wanted my kids to have phones, but for the not for the right reasons. I want them to have phones because I want because everybody else had phones, and my kids want to have phones. But then we had a situation happen recently where they got in a bus emergency and they had to use a friend's phone to call. My wife hopped right in. She, oh no, whoa, whoa. So I think even with that, the Bible says, "Train up a child in the way that it should go." I think we have to learn to, and my children are smart. I mean, I don't mean that arrogantly, but my children are smart. They're smart because their mom's smart. My wife is very, very, very intelligent. She's very thoughtful, and my kids understand that, and they know how to get what they want to get. But I feel like it's going to hurt them in the long run if we don't teach them these strategies that my wife is teaching now. I think and one of the things I hope that she does, hope likely she will, is break this down for money, like money for children, like helping children understand that she's done a lot with youth. But this is one of the things I want them to really pick up on is why. Because right now, my kids don't understand the value of money. Right? They understand that mommy and daddy will give them something if they need. Well, daddy will give them something they need. My wife will too. She's softy, but I want them to understand the value of money. If I gave my children $20, 5 minutes later, you know where it's going to be? It's going to be on the floor somewhere, or it's going to be on the counter. Like they don't like right. And I need them to understand that. But they've lived a life very unlike the one that my wife and I lived, and we struggle for every single thing that we got. And we have a lot, right? We struggle for everything. That's why now when I get a piece of cake, it's a big piece of cake. When I was growing up, it's a little tiny little piece. They don't have that mentality. It's exactly the opposite. When they get stuff, it's a big piece of stuff, or it's a this and and so they're used to abundance. They're used to it. In fact, I remember one time when I told my child no, or I told her we couldn't have something, she was horrified. Like, what do you mean mommy said we ain't got no money to go to McDonald's? That wasn't the case, but you understand what I'm saying? So that it's reversed for them. So I think I need to be better at not only just financial decisions with children, but really helping them to understand, the value of money and why, it doesn't grow on trees. And that's important for me. So anyway.
Well, thank you. We're going to wrap this up. I wanted to have one more question, but we're going to lead in that question for next time. And I'll give you just a plug so you can think about it on next week. Is just that financial risk when one person is more riskier with financial decisions than the other. One is more conservative, and one is high risk. And what are your thoughts around that? So I just want to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us for Money Mastery, Kingdom Dominion, the Money and Marriage series. And we are talking about all things money in relationships, in money, in marriage, so that we can be more open in the kingdom on making financial decisions, because finances is one of the main issues of divorce. And we want to keep the kingdom together. We want to keep the wealth growing. And in order to do that, we need to stay together, and we need to get better at handling money and talking about money and making good money decisions together. So this series is really dedicated to helping and assisting couples that maybe have not mastered that money management, so we can have better conversations around it, get comfortable talking about it, and seeing that there's ways for you to come together so that we can build wealth and we can stay together so we can reduce financial stress. Next week, episode 3, we will be talking about financial risk in marriage. We'll be talking about financial stress in marriage and a few other topics. So if you have things that you want us to talk about, please drop comments in, down below. If you're watching a replay, let us know that you're watching a replay. Let us know what you want to hear. And before we close out, I want to, give it to my husband, pass the mic to him for any last words.
No, just thank you for this time and space with my lovely bride. So proud to be able to do this with you, and thank you for all you've done for me. And I pray that people are blessed as much as I have been. Can't wait to talk next time, guys.
See you next week. Money and Marriage.
See you next week.